Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Environmental Justice Now. My name is Rosina Snow, and I am the Director of Communications at Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. I am also joined by Reverend Faith Harris, who is our Executive Director, and our guests, who I am excited to introduce in a moment. But before we start today, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement to remind us that we gather on the unceded land of the Indigenous peoples. I'm joining in from, I'm in Charlottesville, which is the land of the Monacan people. And many of our guests are joining from Richmond, Virginia, which is the land of the Powhatan and Chickahominy peoples. If you are unsure whose land you are on and would like to find out, you can visit nativeland.ca to find out. So, as a faith-based organization, we are interested in how our members incorporate climate justice in their congregations. But from what we hear, it can be challenging to get the attention of community members and to sustain that interest. The Green team from one of our member congregations decided that part of their work should focus on something everyone seems to care about: recycling. What they didn't realize when they started this initiative is how many ways this was going to morph into something larger. Here today are members of the Earth Care Initiative from the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond. And joining us are Anne-Marie McCartan, who coordinates the team, along with team members Drew Fridley and Kate Barrett. So let's just dive into our conversation about recycling. And Anne-Marie, why don't we start with you? So my question is, isn't recycling kind of old hat? Doesn't everyone do it already? I know that sort of when people were really starting to talk about climate change in the late 2000s a lot, when you would start those conversations with people, they might say, "Oh, well, I recycle." So like recycling has been the thing that people were like, this is what I have to do to take care of the planet. And then we started to be like, oh no, we have all these huge other problems. Does recycling even still matter? And now you are bringing a sort of fresh perspective and fresh energy into this topic that I think is going to be really interesting to those listening. So if you could share a little bit about that, that would be great.
That's great, Rosina. Thank you very much, Faith. Good morning. We're really excited to talk to you and any listeners today. We started our work a year ago, and we decided to adopt the model motivated by climate change, rooted in the seventh principle. Unitarian Universalists have 7 principles, and the 7th one is the respect for the interdependent web of all existence. And that really motivates us to think about what our responsibilities are in terms of caring for our earth. And Rosina, you're exactly right that when people think about what can I do, they start thinking just about what happens in their household, their own personal behaviors. So that's the traditional recycling. So we kind of started there as well. And what we hope to do is share with you some different aspects of how this played out. We started by realizing our church didn't have a policy on recycling, reduce, recycle, reuse. So, and even though that's a 30, 40-year-old concept, 50, I don't know how old it is, but we didn't have a policy on that. We had some practices, but no policy. So one of our members, Joel Bloom, decided to try to write down a policy that we could follow as a church. And what happened was really interesting, because what he realized once he started drafting this policy is that we are moving beyond reduce, recycle, reuse. We also need to incorporate practices of what we call rot and repair. So that becomes what we're calling R to the 5th power, R5. And we also realize that it's, when you start thinking about it, it's beyond just simply putting things in your bin or in your composting. It's really thinking about your lifestyle, and not just our lifestyle, but our church's lifestyle. And by extension, what government does and what corporations do. So all of a sudden it becomes a much bigger picture. But we have to start where people are. So we incorporated a number of examples of that into how we interact with our congregation.
Okay. So just to repeat this, reduce, reuse, repair, rot, and then recycle. So what exactly does this policy promote?
First and foremost, it promotes behavior in our day-to-day lives. And what we did was, over the course of the last year, is we had table events between our services, and we focused on different aspects: household recycling, composting food waste, recycling plastic bags, clothing choices, electronics, and toilet paper. So where would you like to start?
Why don't we start with household recycling? I believe that Kate Barrett is going to speak to us on this.
Okay, I am somehow the chosen recycling person. Anyway, we found in our meetings that when we really seriously contemplate the future of our planet, we're so inundated with material that it's easy for a person or a congregation to feel somewhat hopeless, to feel that there's not a we can do. There have been numerous articles available online and elsewhere about recycling really maybe not being worth our time and our energy. So we decided that we needed to dig into that. We needed to research it. And we were especially interested in not every article that was on the internet, but we wanted to know what was locally true for us and what's current. And so what we decided is to get local specialists in the area. And we contacted Central Virginia Waste Management Authority, and our contact person was Julie Buchanan, who has been wonderful. She came to our church on December 3rd and presented on recycling. Now, that's a bit of a yawner topic for a lot of people. I know that. It's old hat. Everybody does it. Who needs to know more? But what we did was we decided that most of us at some point stand there over the recycling bin and go, is this okay? Should I do this? And so we decided that we would ask people if they had questions. Oh my gosh, we got so many questions, and we sent them to Julie Buchanan, our speaker, in advance. And she said at the presentation, I have never gotten so many questions before from an audience. And our church is well-read, inquisitive, and they want to get down to the nitty-gritty. And what happened is we had a Q&A at this talk, and at one point we had to cut it off because people could not stop answering questions. And Julie was wonderful in responding just the way we wanted her to, telling us what works with Central Virginia Waste Management Authority. And we were very pleased with that. But perhaps the best thing that came from that, she of course told us that about a website that we could go to, which is actually wonderful for local information about Central Virginia. She also gave us her phone number and her email and encouraged us to continue to contact her with questions or with ideas. And she, like we all have pretty much said, recycling is a tiny piece of what we're trying to do. And it's far down the line. First comes our thoughts about purchasing things, being consumers. What are we buying? Why are we buying? And why does it have to be packaged this way? And all those questions, I think since we started this campaign, we all have them in the forefront of our mind now. As we stand in a store thinking, do I really need this? What do I do with it? What happens to it after tomorrow night when I wear it, And I think I think it's a good way for us to think. And as a grandmother, my grandkids have said to me, Grandma, the world's just going to end in a big fiery mess because of all this junk that we have, and we're destroying our planet. I'm like, oh my gosh, these kids are having trouble sleeping at night because of these horrible visions. We need to get them involved, because I just recently read a report that if kids are involved in working actively toward planet health, they feel better about their future. And so do we. I'll take any questions you might have, Rosina.
Yeah, and I would say that that extends not just to children, but I think also to adults.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but absolutely. What is the name of the web? I don't know if you have it handy, but the website that
It's the initials of Central Virginia Waste Management Authority. So it's CVM, CVWMA.com.
All right, I'm just going to put that up here so people can see that.
And we found it to be really helpful. And there are things, in your own church that you can hang up that are colorful pictures that people can really learn a lot from.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Rosina, two things. One is we had a tremendous turnout for this thing, which just lets you know that people really are wanting to do something, and this seems tangible to them. Mm-hmm. Second of all, Julie said they encourage people to come to the South Richmond recycling facility for a tour. And we'll be organizing that later this year, because I think it helps to actually see with your own eyes what is the process of taking care of these things that we dump in our bin and get collected. So,
wow, anyway. I would love to join that.
Okay, we'll let you know about
it. Yeah, I think you were touching, Kate, on something that we'll come back to later, which is that so much of the onus of solving this huge waste problem gets put on individuals who are then, standing in front of their trash and recycling and being like, this has a 7 on it. Does my county recycle 7? Like, and it almost feels like there's a certain number of people who are just very conscientious, people of goodwill, people of faith who really care about these things and are going to expend that energy. But there's also a lot of people who just don't have time for it. Like, now that I have young children, I don't have as much time for these things, or people who don't care, or people who are oblivious. So, like, ultimately the onus can't be put on individuals to solve this problem. And we're going to talk later about how we might be able to organize to maybe hold, companies more accountable and governments more accountable. At the same time, though, this initiative is empowering people to become more educated, to become more passionate about this, which then creates energy around it that can be harnessed in a number of different ways. Moving on from recycling, I see you have plastic bags here. So, Anne-Marie, plastics.
I will touch on that, because we've just launched a very exciting initiative. We are in partnership with a company called Trex, Trex. They make decking and railing out of composite materials. And I learned about a partnership that churches can engage in with Trex, whereby they send you huge bins and some instructions about where your plastic bags go. And you can collect those at church, and then you take them to a place that recycles plastic. And one such place is, your local grocery store, your Kroger, your Publix, your Martin's, how they have that barrel. You can put those things there, but we get the credit. If we collect 1,000 pounds of bags, they will donate a Trex bench to us. What is really exciting is that I think I speak for probably a lot of people when I say I recycle plastic bags. I take them to my grocery store, but you can recycle so much more in terms of soft, bendable plastic. You can recycle bread bags, Amazon mailers, cut off the labels, bubble wrap, those little pushy things, cushy things that they put in packaging, cereal box liners that have been rinsed out, dry cleaning bags. So all of a sudden, it triples the amount of soft plastic that you can put into the recycling stream. And those go to Trex. They process them to make their products. So I think that's going to be great fun. We've already, I'm happy to announce, collected 8 pounds of plastic.
You just have
992 left
to go.
So that's you can again you can contact us for more details on that partnership, but so far so good. 2 weeks in.
Yeah. Are plastic bags collected across the state at grocery stores?
I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure.
It's something I used to do, and then I stopped. I don't know if it was because I I don't know why I stopped doing that, but thanks for reminding me.
There you
But I
go.
think that's like a big relief to have a place where people can bring stuff, because I think people want to. So
Mhm.
that tracks. That sounds like a really cool initiative, and I think we'll have more information on that. We can put that in the show notes or what have you, and on our website and stuff. So good. We've got solutions. We're talking solutions. And what the so of the 5 R's that I saw, the one that really jumped out at me was rot. I like that. Um, Drew, could you talk about that? I think this has to do with composting, I hope.
Yes, thanks for having me here. Yeah, it touches on the composting part of our initiative, and what we've done with that is we set up a table on Sunday mornings for the second and coffee hour, and for the first and second service, and the coffee hour in between. And we just have that table there so people can come up and ask us any questions. So we have rotating things, like the things we're talking about are things we have set up the table on Sundays for. That's where we got the questions for recycling. And this is where we set up for the composting thing. Anne Marie contacted a company that's local in Richmond that they'll give you a bucket, and you can compost in there, and they tell you what you can put in there and what you cannot, and then they'll come and pick it up and like do cycle them out. And we also just talk about any questions people have, and we really try to meet people where they are. So whatever kind of composting thing that might work for them, I'm always pushing for like the maximum thing. I'm like trying to compost everything and get people to compost like on their property and keep everything like on site and everything like that. But we really just are there to answer any questions and really just plant seeds. Like if they're not ready to do it, then we're letting people know what's possible. And it was really great talking with the congregation because some people had said, we used to compost and we got out of the habit, but now, you've inspired me to do it again. Or, oh, I tried it and it didn't seem like it was working. What was I doing wrong? And, I can give them some just things to go home and try, as far as like, maybe you just need to turn it. Maybe you just need to add more carbon to it, things like this. And yeah, that's pretty much what we've been doing on Sundays.
So I have a few follow-up questions there.
Mhm.
First of all, for those who don't know what composting is, I'm sure there's still some folks out there who haven't heard the good news. What is composting? Why does it? How does it work, and why is it important?
Composting is important because, like it's one of our R's. It is, if you have food scraps, instead of like those ending up in a landfill, and like these landfills we were just talking about last night, they're just going to be there forever. So it's not like we can let things compost as far as food scraps and then go like retrieve them and filter them out from all the trash and everything. So it ends up just being what could be good soil. And we're having a lot of issues with, of course, people tilling and dredging up soil, and then we're just like, we have soil degradation. So composting is a great way to just build up soil and have good soil for whatever is on your property, or just to let it sit there. I encourage people, even if you're not going to use it for anything, just compost on your property and let it all go back into the nature that surrounds you, because it takes a lot of energy to throw it in the trash, take the trash out, have a large truck with fossil fuels and all of this, like, and the people that work there, and to take it miles away from the house and just throw it in a big heap. And it really just rots there, and it's unlikely it will ever be used again. Whereas at least if you just have it, right there on your property, you could use it for something, or it could just sit there and go back into the earth as intended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, composting is just such a beautiful example of like what it looks like a closed loop life cycle for materials. when that is working well. And of course, it's organic waste. So it's sort of like nature showing us how we should be designing our products, which is, I don't know if you've ever heard the word biomimicry, but in design, you can learn from the way that nature designs things is in a very efficient way where there's not waste, where things get reused. So composting kind of shows us what we should be aiming for in all of our materials that we make. And I also, I definitely kudos to the people who do their own composting. That's wonderful. For me, as like a busy person in Charlottesville, I have chosen we also have like a company that you can sign up, and it's called Black Bear Composting, and they give you a bucket. Like Anne-Marie, you were showing it, you have a bucket. I think it's similar to that. And, it has a sealing lid. You put your waste in it, including bones, including, anything that's going to break down. They have a really big facility, and they pick it up once a week. It costs like $20 a month. So it's like very affordable. And then once a year, they give you back finished compost.
Wow.
And to me, that's an example of a larger scale solution where individuals don't have to make a huge amount of effort. But there's almost a municipal level program. This happens to be private, but I think that the city does partner with them, and schools use them, congregations can use them. And, I think this is the way we need to be thinking to solve these kinds of problems, is that we have a passion to compost, and we're going to put pressure on our government to facilitate a program that is easy for everyone. So it's not just the extremely conscientious people in your city who are going to do it, but it expands to be everyone. And a number of cities have started composting. I don't know if Richmond has any sort of.
We do. Yes, we do. Richmond City does at your local libraries and at community gardens. Yeah. So I have, I just bought it, one of these, and then these are compostable. And so I just fill it up, and twice a week, at least twice a week, I walk both of my little jugs to a composting buckets, and they take it away. They also want anything that's green. So paper bags are green, newspaper is green. They will take anything that was green and can be green again, because that helps in the oxidation, the process of decomposting. I want to say that what you just said, Rosina, most of my family lives on the West Coast, and those cities have a composting, it's a yard waste and composting bin, and you just throw it in there, and the city picks it up every week, because not many people, as one of my sisters tells me, not many people are going to walk these dang things up to a community garden to dump them out. So we need to get there. There's no reason that we can't. They charge us for all kinds of other services. It'd be great if I had a little bin in the back that I could do that. But so anyway, that's been a fun.
And they do that in New York City, where I'm from, and my family lives. And I think it's a good example of, there was this organic, so to speak, interest bubbling up. And first they collected the compost at the farmers markets. And that seems to be the stage that Richmond is at now. And then that was so successful that they just started composting as part of the waste management for the city. And they do that in a number of ways. And at first people were like, oh, this is going to attract rats and whatever. And it's actually the opposite of that, because you're putting all the stuff that would attract vermin into a sealed container that they can't get into. So, it just is a very efficient process. And that's something that we can get excited about. We have a few more little topics here. Fast fashion and buying used clothes.
I'm going to cover this for one of our members who's been leading this, named Jean Carter, because this was a big learning curve for me and really exciting. I didn't realize that clothing production emits about 10% of carbon emissions in our environment. That's huge, 10%. And 63% of clothing is made from synthetic fibers that are made from plastics. And that's bad in the production phase and in the end life phase as well. So particularly harmful is a term that you may be familiar with, fast fashion. And that's this trend is when something becomes popular on the, the catwalk or somehow in movie stars or whatever. And then companies just mass produce it fast to get it on the market. And of course, the problem with that is they use cheap and exploited labor. They use cheap and toxic textiles to dye the fabrics. This synthetic material they use, it doesn't wear well. And then it also gives you the sense that you got to keep up with fashion. And I like to think I'm immune from that, but I've noticed that I practice yoga, and I'm always noticing what the new trends in yoga, pants and tops are, thinking I need to keep up. And then I looked in my drawer and I've got yoga pants there from 15 years ago, and they are still as good as new. So you have to work against the culture to say, oh, I don't need the latest trends in yoga pants. I know that's a small example. So the companies like H&M, Gap, Forever 21, Walmart, Target, those all have plenty of fast fashion. So what we encouraged our members to do, look at the label. If you're going to buy new clothes, look at the labels. Is it made of cotton, wool, silk, linen, rain, even bamboo? And where is it made? Obviously, made locally is made in the USA is best, but that's not always possible. The other day I was getting out my winter sweaters, and I pulled one out that I've had for years. I know it's years because it's a wool sweater and said made in Italy. Now, when is the last time you've ever seen anything made? And it wasn't an expensive sweater. So not that long ago, you could get a beautiful natural fabric sweater that was made in Italy. Mm-hmm. If I can just then talk about the other aspect briefly, and that is, so why are we buying new clothes to begin with? And that's something we really should think about. I don't know how it is in Charlottesville and other parts in the state, but we have so many consignment and used clothing stores in Richmond, and so many that some of them specialize in children's and baby clothes or plus sizes where, there's nothing smaller than a size 12 in the store. So it's a pretty big market here in Richmond. And, you may not be able to find your ideal winter coat to go in there, but you can find any number of pants, blouses, shirts, sport coats, sweaters, leisure wear. A couple of weeks ago, I decided I needed a better fitting pair of jeans. And so rather than going to a store, I said, let me go to Clothes Rack, which is a local store run by the Junior League. And they have huge racks of jeans, just stuffed with jeans. Tried some on. I found the perfect Ann Tyler Loft jeans for $10. Mm-hmm. Now those retail at Loft for $90. And even better, I donated a couple of my used pairs to them to resell so the organization can use it for their community service projects. Mm-hmm. So this is really our colleague, Jean Carter. She only buys used clothes these days. And she always is well-dressed. Wouldn't you say, Kate? She's always well-dressed. So it's been a really important learning curve about that. So.
Yeah. Shopping. I think consignment shopping is really fun. You can also do that online. There's all these, thrifting online stores, including shopgoodwill.com. I don't know if any of you are hip to this, but there's the Goodwills across the country, and you can just shop for what you want, and it shows you pages of blouse, and pages of blouses will come up, and then you have to bid on them, but you can buy them, they'll send them to you. So there is the shipping part of it. Wow. But I like to search for designer brands and be and then see what comes up, and it's discounted and everything anyway. Moving on. If we can have 30 seconds each for electronics and bamboo toilet paper. Who wants to do that?
Bamboo toilet paper is short, and that is there are alternatives to paper products for tissue and toilet paper and that kind of thing. So we had a demonstration by a company called Don't Give a Crap, and it's bamboo tissue paper perfectly. I mean, toilet paper, and I buy that now, and their tissue paper, and it's equally good, if not better, than some of the other products that are paper based. So. Then the other one that's really important is, I think, raise your hand if you know or you personally have electronics used electronics sitting around your house that, you say, what am I going to do with these? I don't want to throw them away. Nobody can use them. So there is actually an organization called Tech for Troops, and that's techfortroops.org, I think. And their mission is to refurbish used electronics and then gift them to America's active duty transitioning military, homeless, and impoverished veterans and their families. So we collected electronics for about a month and came up with the guy, Mike Kane, who took them away with like 2 to 3 truck beds full of electronics that people had hanging around their house: cell phones, computers, monitors, file servers, keyboards, iPads, tablets, you name it. They take all of that stuff.
Wow.
And they will refurbish and use it responsibly. Mm-hmm. So that's something we're really proud of. And we'll probably do that again this year because these things do add up, as you know, electronic devices. So that's been good too.
Yeah, I'm loving all these solutions I'm hearing. So maybe 2 more questions. One, maybe I'll maybe Kate or Drew could answer this one, but what has your congregation's response been to all these efforts?
Well, I think that the number of people who came to our recycling presentation speaks to the interest. I mean, we were teasing and saying, gee, I hope 5 people come, 10 people come, and we had over 50 people, and enthusiastic people. I think there's new energy, and anytime you can create new energy for a good cause, it's a positive thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to also ask follow up to that. Like how does faith come into that? How does the connection to the divine? How is that motivating these efforts, like among yourselves or in your community? How have you seen that to play a role?
Is there any chance we can call on Dr. Harris to answer that question?
I'm sure. I think that this is really a great question because Anne Marie and I had a really extensive conversation about this this week. And one of the things that as a organization focused on interfaith engagement on these issues, on environmental justice, on climate justice, on attempting and trying to find solutions to this really, overwhelming, the most important issue, one of the most important issues of our lives. We recognize, first of all, that every faith tradition has some, principle or doctrine or responsibility or teachings about our responsibility to Earth, to caring for the environment, as well as caring for our neighbor. And when I talk about this and when I think about this issue, I think about all the ways in which we have to change our lives. That in fact, this has been such an intransigent issue to become such a crisis because it actually means we have to undo a lot of what we've been doing, and we have to think differently. And I really fell in love with the way that the Earth Care Initiative at First UU has taken on this challenge, because they've taken it from a very practical perspective, solutions driven, but also it touches on almost all the major concerns and major areas where we have to actually make changes, like mass production and recognizing that the role of plastics and fossil fuels in our daily lives that we just aren't even aware of, bringing that to the forefront to people. And then I think, as I mentioned to our team, but also to Anne Marie, that, this has been something that's been on my mind and heart for several months. How do we respond? How do we find a way to help people engage on, with the low-hanging fruit and not like overburden them with the reality that they actually are going to have to change their entire lives, right? to tell that to them a little bit at a time, right? And so I saw this segment on CBS a few months ago, and a few weeks ago, and it was about the way our electronics end up in places like Ghana, right, where little children 8 and 9 and younger are pulling apart our electronics and trying to get out the minerals to recycle them, and or copper wiring. And just thinking about how this problem can be solved if we choose to hold our corporations accountable, if we recognize the moral, the morality of that. Like, what does it mean for us to throw away our electronics and they end up, thousands of miles away on the shores of a very poor country with little children, some of our grandchildren's age, right, that are on this call, and some of our children's age that are on this call today. How do we, what's our responsibility, right? It's not just putting that trash, that plastic bag in a bin, in the right bin, but it also has to do with how do we hold our leaders accountable. And we recognize that corporations have a major responsibility in this, and that if we can encourage, influence, hold them accountable to do that on the front end, we can make major inroads. And it's something that the entire faith community of every background every tradition can get behind, and we can do this together. And it's so exciting to me because I'm thinking, as an interfaith org, we have partner congregations. I really want to use, first you use, work and their what they've done as a model for some of the other congregations, so that people can get excited again about taking part, taking responsibility, but also that they can also learn. Because this has been, just as Anne-Marie said, it's a learning curve for all of us, learning what's going on, ways that we can address some of the simple issues, but also recognizing how it leads to some of the answers and solutions to the largest problem. How do we remove ourselves and stop burning fossil fuels and making plastics out of the residuals of fossil fuels? And how do we make our lives better here and abroad? And that's what it means to care about our world. That's what it means to be caretakers of our earth. And that's what it means to be concerned about climate and environmental justice. We care about what the things that we do here, how they impact people, not just in our backyard, but also around the world. So this is incredibly exciting to me. And we've been talking in a team about all the ways that we can get involved. And so I was so excited that Anne-Marie and Drew and Kate were on today, and Rosina. This has been a really great conversation. And I think we can use this to help a number of other communities take on this kind of challenge as well. So we'll be working with you and bugging you, Anne and Kate and Drew, to help us in that process.
Yeah, thank you for that, Faith. That's a really good summary of this conversation. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us. I love to hear all the solutions, and I'll put those in the, we're attached to the videos where they appear on Facebook and YouTube. And I just want to reiterate that I think it's very important for communities to be modeling what this looks like, because when I have visited congregations or just places where those solutions are being implemented, there is a feeling of, wow, this is really beautiful. This is really logical. This is really possible. Like, we should all be doing this, and we should be pushing our governments and companies to move this along, so that this can be what our entire city looks like, what our entire state looks like, and our entire world eventually. So thank you very much. And
Rosina, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I forgot to mention that that segment that I watched on the CBS News, one of the things they talked about was the Basel Treaty that for one of the earlier COP, we're in the season of COP, right? COP 28 is happening now. We're finishing up this week. And so this is a treaty that we have not, America, the United States, has not yet ratified, while 191 other countries have. And I'm thinking this is something that, and that's how electronics end up in these Southeast Asia and Africa. And the treaty is to prevent that from happening. And so this is something that we know we could have power over if we can get our government to actually take action and sign that treaty and engage more fully in the world, on the world stage. Our country has so much power, and we need to use that influence for good to make these changes. So we're going to be coming to you with petitions and conversations in the future over the next several months and hopefully years to see if we can build some momentum to get to make those changes and to get companies to change. So I'm really glad that this is kind of like a first step and a first foray into that for Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. So thanks again for coming.
That's a really good, important thing to point out. Yes, thanks. And I hope that those listening have learned a lot, feel inspired and energized. And we'll see you the next 2 weeks, but we'll maybe be re-airing some older episodes, and then we'll see you again in January. So
thanks,
so
Christina.
thank you.